Good morning and welcome everyone to this morning's Governance and Transparency Committee meeting for September 2023. Councillors in attendance are myself, Councillor Madsen, Councillor Harding, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Milligan and Councillor Kunzelman. I have no apologies. Proceed to the acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land and waters we share. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, customs, cultures and stories of proud people. Do any committee members have declarations of interest in matters on today's agenda? There being no declarations of interest, we'll proceed forward. I'll move along to the confirmation of minutes. I'll seek a mover from the floor, moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion on those minutes this morning? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 2 today is a procurement update for the Spend on Voluntary Home Buyback program. Are there any questions this morning of the relevant officers? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A and B together, moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion from the committee this morning?
If I may, Chair, I just note the success of the Voluntary Home Buyback Fund and what a difference it's mean to the people of Ipswich. I think there's about 293 properties that have been approved to be included in the Voluntary Home Buyback. And to date, there are 74 homes that have been contracted to be demolished and 10 houses to be removed and relocated. So just support this program that's been run by the state and the federal governments.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion this morning? There being no further discussion, I'll put recommendation A and B to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 3 today is another procurement matter. Residential curbside recycling contract extension. It's a recommendation that's in 4 parts, but before we proceed to moving, I'll see if there's any questions for relevant officers. There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through D. Moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning on this matter? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 4 today is also a procurement matter. Item 21665, manufacture and supply of asphaltic concrete. I certainly didn't think that was the word asphaltic, but you know, we've learnt something. How good is that? Any questions of the relevant officers on this procurement matter? That being the case, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C. Moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning on that procurement matter? There being no discussion, I will put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 5 today is a procurement matter. Expression of interest for Voice of Customer Platform CX program. It's a recommendation with 2 parts. I will see if the committee's got any questions for the relevant officers. Mayor Harding.
Yes, I'm just looking through this paperwork. And
Can you identify if it's a customer service question or a procurement question?
I think it's an IT technical question, so that's what I was going to ask. I can see there's nothing in here, there's no advice from a CIO, so I'm just curious to get advice from a CIO on this particular procurement.
I'll call forward Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, Councillors. Matt Smith, GM Corporate Services.
Through the Chair, obviously just looking at any ICT procurement, making sure that we do, I can see the sign-off here is, there's nothing from a CIO, so seeking your advice on the process, and does this fit in with iVolve?
So, Mayor, I guess the customer experience is adjacent to iVolve, but very strongly linked. So iVolve very focused on our CRM process. The customer experience is probably slightly different, but we'll need to integrate in that space. So certainly strong ICT involvement to make sure those are comparative. This process is an expression of interest at this stage to really help us understand what's available a little more in the market and better understand where our requirement is and what the market can actually provide for us at this stage.
What was the ICT's team or the CIO's involvement in this particular matter?
So the ICT team has been closely involved. We've utilised some external expertise that we have available to us through some service provision to help guide and build this expression of interest as well, working closely obviously with the CCED team also.
Okay. So is there any advice from the CIO? The acting CIO?
Other than comfortable with its progression at this point in time, given it's an expression of interest, and I guess that's when we work more closely in terms of integration and alignment with our current corporate systems as well.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may just add through the chair, that there is an assessment in relation to the IVOL scope alignment in the report, which I'm sure you've seen, and that they're generally prepared in consultation with the CIO and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any further questions of officers this morning? There being no further questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A and B. That's moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion this morning from the committee? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 6 today is the procurement matter Beanstack application, 3-year premium licence support and maintenance. Another two-part recommendation. Are there any questions of the relevant officer this morning? Mayor Harding.
If I can, Chair, Mr. Smith again.
Matt Smith, GM Corporate Services.
Thank you. Through the chair. Again, this report doesn't have any recommendation from the CIO as to how this fits into the organisation. I just want to making sure that we're not purchasing standalone software that won't ever interact with anything.
No, Mayor, we're not, and CIO heavy involvement in these processes, I guess. Perhaps a learning for us moving forward in terms of incorporating more around confirming that consultation process in our papers moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. That being the questions phase over, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A and B. Moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 7 today is a procurement matter for Oracle Service Cloud licence and support. Are there any questions of the relevant officer this morning? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A and B. That's moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 8 this morning is a procurement matter for Kronos Software Licence and Services Agreement. Are there any questions this morning on this matter? Being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C. It's moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 9 this morning is the 2021-2022 financial statements for controlled entities. Are there any questions this morning on this matter? We've got one recommendation here that the report titled 2021-2022 financial statement for controlled entities be received and the contents noted. I'll seek a mover for that. Moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning?
If I may, Chair, I think it's just important to note the matter, it's on page 81, which has an update on other controlled entities, which states the members' voluntary liquidation has been completed for Ipswich City Enterprises and Ipswich City Enterprise Investments Proprietary Limited. The date of the deregistration by ASIC was on the 2nd of July 2023. Obviously, those full financial statements have come through, but it's good to see those controlled entities to have been wound up. So thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. That being the case, we'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 10 this morning is the iVolve Program Report September 2023. Are there any questions on this report this morning? Mayor Harding.
Chair, thank you.
We'll assume you require Mr. Smith again.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Matt Smith, General Manager, Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And through the Chair, I'm just looking at a couple of items. First of all, in the iVolve program dashboard that have moved from amber to red, or red. So the iVolve budget risk, do we know what quantity we're looking at? What's the funding there?
So, Mayor, I guess overall for the iVolve program, one of the challenges we're working through at the moment is a business case that was developed a number of years ago. As our understanding of council's requirements has developed through that process, we are working to update the business case. That business case will be pushed through for approval in the coming month. The revised business case will provide us a better picture of the budget. So the budget is marked at risk because we're working off an earlier iteration, not such that we're overspending at this point in time. So right at this point in time, we're tracking positively to budget for the implementation of the functions that we're working through at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. To the next item, which is schedule risk. I see that it's read, and it states that this is read as the iVolve schedule has not yet been published. When do you expect that to be published?
The full schedule for the overall iVolve program will be published as we agree the final business case. So
Right.
Again, that's being consulted through council at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. This is stakeholder risk, and that's moved from amber to red, and it talks about the iVolve change manager resigned in June. We've always sort of acknowledged that cultural change is a big part of this. I'm just wondering what steps you're taking at the moment to address that.
So, Mayor, we're looking to, we're in the market right now, some final processes working through this week in terms of appointing some additional change resource. I can confirm after some earlier conversations that we've managed to secure some continuity through our change, which is a late change from earlier discussions this week. So some continuity of our change resources on the project and some additional resources coming in to support. It is a critical piece for us. We're working through that with the key impacted parts of the business at this point in time for the first phase in Fusion, but certainly looking to bolster those resources as we implement additional phases.
Okay, thank you. I note on page 2 of that, the final business case, it says progress expected for the next period, so August to November. It says that iVolve change approach to be agreed, change strategy to be updated and starting to be acted upon. What changes are you expecting?
In terms of changes to business or in terms of our broader change strategy?
Well, it says the iVolve change approach to be agreed. So what approach is changing? And then it talks about the change in the strategy as well.
Yeah, I guess, Mayor, for us in terms of the change approach, it's been very focused on ensuring that our key users are heavily engaged and then they're the resource that we're using to, I guess for want of a better term, sell this back to the business. So right now at this point in time, we're in key user training. So some of the SMEs and people that will be testing the system are going through their training process at the moment. That's a critical part in our strategy to ensure as they fully understand the end-to-end system, they can get out and about and start to share what that looks like. And we actually have an environment that they're able to take people through and show it's a little bit more look and feel. That's really critical for this first phase. As we roll through the next phases, the early engagement of people in the development of those key requirements, understanding the solutions that might be available and their input into that will be critical for us as well. We're also working to educate the end user in a slightly different approach to what council might be used to. Always awkward with the use of this word, but a more agile methodology, which tends to be more iterative. You don't see the end product until more of a just-in-time kind of delivery. Trying to educate people early in that approach so that there's a clear understanding that we won't actually see what a finished solution looks like until much closer, but that means we get a finished solution sooner.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Chair.
All right, I'll seek a mover for the one recommendation here, moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning?
If I may, Chair, I sort of appreciate the candid report, and I know that this does go through the Audit and Risk Management Committee, and they do a very thorough job in reviewing this. Also note too, what was very pleasing in the benefits risk too, that talked about the fact that the benefits arising from the fusion project are broader than originally thought, and that's due to the positioning of the, I guess, improving the business practices and processes that are the flow-on effects of that. So it's really great to see that happening in the organisation as well. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. That being the case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item 11 today is Strategic Advisor iVolve Program Report, September 2023. Any questions on this report this morning? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for the one recommendation. That's moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on this matter?
If I may, Chair, Council have contracted strategic directions for that independent business advice, and I do rely on their reports heavily, so I just want to thank the organisation for continuing that and the work that strategic directions does.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll proceed to the vote on this matter. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 12 this morning is the Ipswich City Council 2024 Council and Committee meetings calendar. 3 recommendations. Are there any questions or any alterations from the floor? That being the case, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C. It's moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on that this morning?
If I may, Chair, I just note that due to the election, it's only a calendar till the election next year, and with caretaker kicking on the 29th of January, obviously, Council make sure that we follow all those conventions and the policies and the legislation in regards to any council decision making.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll proceed to the vote this morning on item 12. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. Item 13, I believe there's an item 13. Item 13 this morning is the CEO Performance Appraisal Financial Year 2023. It's a 4-part recommendation. I'm just noting some of these attachments will be confidential in nature if any committee members wish to open it up for discussion. That being the case, are there any questions of officers on this matter? I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through D. That's moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion this morning, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous and carried. I've got no notices of motion or matters arising this morning. I'll declare the meeting closed at 9:49 a.m. with the next committee to commence at 10 o'clock.